Welcome to the as of yet unnamed podcast. We'll get to that later. Featuring me, Chris Ronsky from W Marketing Group. You'll learn about me later. And then my partner in crime, this guy.
It's listen, guys. You gotta get used to seeing this beautiful mug. It's Omri Monroe from TuneWorks Media, your right hand ad man. I'm on the show with my partner Chris Ronsky. We're gonna talk about all things that have to do with the world, news, life, living, and advertising, and how it relates to you, your business, us, and our business, and our journey to get to the top. So today is episode one, day one, and today we're talking about a name.
Yep, yep. What's in a name? You know, is that a song? Is that a poem? Is that yeah? Something there's always there's something that's out there already that says what's in a name. Rose by any other name is would still smell as sweet, all that crap. But that's actually not true. If a rose was called the crap bush, it wouldn't smell that great, or at least the perception of it wouldn't be that great. People aren't going to sit there and say, hey, stop and smell the crap bush. It's just not going to happen. you know so that's why names are
I like
important.
to not only that, I like to start with this. Anything I do, I always like to start with the definition. And not that I'm saying anything about ourselves or the audience, but I always like to start with a definition. So the definition, I'm looking it up right now. Definition of the term name is a word or phrase that constitutes a distinctive designation of a person or a thing. Um, a descriptive, often disparaging epithet. So it's a wide variety of things, but it's a title. It's a distinctive designation of a person or a thing. So when we talk about what is a name, we really have to look, come at it from the words of, what a name is. And a name is super important because it's easy to talk about, well, the colors and this and that, but how you choose the name of whatever it is, whether it's your business, whether it's your podcast, whether it's your formula soap, whatever it is, the name is super important because it's supposed to stick and let people know exactly who you are in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot to be said about choosing a name. I mean, if you're just starting out and you're trying to figure out a name, it can be one of the hardest decisions, and it also can be one of the decisions that doesn't make or break you, but it can set you up for success if you do it the right way. I mean, just think about brands that come up off the cuff. You know, it like Nike. You know, what is Nike? Well, everyone thinks of the shoe, but Nike originally is from Greek mythology. It's the goddess of victory. And when Nike started coming around back in the day, you're trying to figure out a name. Trying to figure out a name. Greek mythology was, something big culturally at the time, and they were like, let's just call ourselves Victory. And it just kind of followed suit. You know, we call ourselves Victory. You use our shoes, you're going to be victorious. That's and what more do athletes want than to win? I mean,
Victory, they want the win.
exactly. So I mean, that's one that's you think of, and it's kind of obscure, but it's relevant and all that stuff, and it just kind of like it kind of sticks. But then you've got other brands that try to go a little too far as a descriptor, and it doesn't really work. One I can think of that kind of blew up and then we haven't heard of since is Dollar Shave Club.
I
I
forgot
mean,
about Dolly.
exactly. Dollar Shave Club, huge, huge for a while. The brand was just like enormous because they had the descriptive name, but it didn't have the staying power. Because, sure, Dollar Shave Club explains exactly what it was. but there wasn't much behind it. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
shave for $1, whatever. Well, there were some other issues too. It's not actually $1, all the other stuff. And they ended up selling, the company to Gillette, I think, for a huge sum of money. And I think that's partially why it kind of went away, because Gillette was like, hey, you're digging into our profits. We're gonna buy you out. Uh, you know, but at the same time, unless somebody's actually talking about it, you're not thinking about that name. So when we're
Gotcha.
coming up with names for things, and one of the things we're going to do is we're going to talk about naming this podcast because, well, I mean, obviously we've workshopped some things, but we haven't come to a decision yet because do we want to go descriptive? Do we want to go something, the Nike route? Do we want to have something, short, quick? Do we want to have it more descriptive? I mean, there's so many options, but when it comes to figuring out a name, you know, it, once you figure out your name, then you start thinking about your branding and your logos and your colors and what's the feel that comes with the name?
Mhm.
What's the target audience for the name? Who do we want to listen to? What are they looking for? That's another thing that we have to think about in this world. Optimization, search optimization. You know, one of the reasons why I called my company W Marketing Group, my last name is Ronsky. It starts with a W. I know it doesn't sound like it, but it does. Fucking dumb. Whatever. But, you know, W Marketing Group. We wanted to have that as our name because when people are looking for marketing, it's right in our name, really simple, and it gets us in for the optimization. I mean, I'm not going to say any of the other names because I'm not going to advertise their asses. Uh, but it's like saying Magic Gurus is our marketing firm name. Where's the optimization? What is the point of that? Yeah, sure, we can make magic. Woo, but I hate that. Because somebody's going to look up Magic Gurus and think, hey, maybe they do magic, magician classes. Maybe they have magician tools. Nope, it's a marketing company. You, you know,
You wouldn't even think it. I mean, I and I guess, and I take it to my story when I think about how I came with the name, because I never went to marketing school. I haven't read hundreds of books on marketing. I don't have a marketing degree, or branding anything or anything like that. Uh, so how does somebody who wants to start a business come up with a name? Well, I was 26 years old and I was in a small, tiny apartment in the hood, sitting in front of my computer, thinking to myself, I need to get an LLC and I need to come up with a name, something that will really transcend, um, where I am today, who I am today, and the surroundings and everything else. So what can I do? I need to create a name that's standalone from me, that when people hear that name, they'll feel like this must be the company that blah. So I thought to myself, I said, okay, well, what do I like? If this is going to be an emanation of me and a name that I'm going to claim and a brand that I'm going to stick behind, what of me can I put in the name? And the thing that I thought of was, well, what do I enjoy? I said, well, I like music. Okay, great. And I like film and I like this and that and all that kind of stuff. And I was looking up words and I said, wait a minute. Well, media encompasses all of that.
yep,
And it also, in tune, also encompasses the song part and kind of the artistic musical part of it. Tune works. Okay, so tune. Okay, tune works as we kind of doing the work here. Okay, tune works. Okay, media. And then I thought it was stupid. Then I was gonna call it like Gold Star Productions or some other gold. I was gonna call it all kinds of stuff because it used to be Cam Body, short for Camera Body Films. But I said no, because we're not going to just do films. We're going to do business commercials and ads and this and that and jingles and all kinds of stuff. And that's when I landed on TuneWorks Media. And that right there, I felt really stuck so that I could be able to say, you know what? if you never meet me in person and you only see the name, you need to feel like this company is much larger than what it even may be at the time. So TuneWorks Media is how that came to be. And I'd say that to say this, when I was sitting, when you're sitting at home, like just like I was sitting at home, trying to figure out who I was and what direction I was going with and what services, and watching the trillion YouTube videos some of you guys are right now, I just looked at myself, what I represented, who I was, and who I see myself as now and in the future, and tried to find synonyms and use the dictionary and Google to piece together words and mash them together. And that's how I came up with my name, TuneWorks Media. So that's how I did that. So if you ever need help trying to figure out how to come up with a name for your brand or your business, don't be afraid to look up synonyms. Don't be afraid to look up antonyms. Don't be afraid to take two words that are totally disrelated. Look at your materials, the things that you work with your hands, the things that you use to actually do the job. What are the names of those? What are the Greek names or the Latin names of some of your tools, materials, or subjects, or knowingness, so that you can take those two things that may be disrelated, put them together, and then say, what's the bridge or what's the overarching theme of what it is that I make, produce, create, or help people with, and then match that in a name, and then you'll be able to get your name.
Yeah, I mean that's a great way to do it. And what I love from your story about that is you weren't just thinking about, you know, where you are now. You're thinking about what you want to be later,
That's right.
and the perception. Yeah, that's a big thing. Marketing and advertising is all about perception, changing people's perception, and that's all. But branding is all about that too. So when we're talking about, you know, like you said in your story, you want people to know that where you're going. This isn't just like a mom and pop little, we make some videos, we do some stuff. You want to be, hey, we're the place we go. That's what it
And
is.
you know what? I will say that what started to happen was when I told people that I shot videos for TuneWorks Media, people thought I worked there. And
Right.
I love it. It still happens today. People are like, hey, you okay? So you work there, or do you like you just work there, right? And I love that, because to me it shows me that I picked something that feels timeless. I picked something that feels larger than me. I feel like I picked
Mhm.
something that you can't put a face to it. You just know it's an entity, and people are like, oh, so you work there, they hired you. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, no, and for different businesses and different aspects, you know, having the faceless brand like that is what you need. Like when you're B2B, a lot of times, the other businesses that have the money to, and have the ability to invest in their marketing and their videos and do all these different things, you know, they don't want to work with, the small little guy. They want to work with somebody that's big, that can handle their requests, that can, you know, that has the experience, that has the people working there, and all this other stuff. So when you're getting that, hey, you just work there, right? I mean, that's them saying, I know the perception of your company is much bigger than what it could actually be. And that's what we want. We want the perception to be that you're big. And it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, in that way. You're going, all right, I'm gonna make it sound bigger, and eventually we're gonna get there. But then you're gonna have times where, the brand is more about the face. When you're talking celebrities, athletes, things of that nature, you're going to
I wanted to just piggyback off something that you said, Chris, and it made me think of something. Um, I want people to think. So this is how I thought about it, to come up with a lot of things. What does a con man do? why are con men so successful, so popular? Why are they the way that they are? Why does everything work for them? Well, if you look at the term con man, that's short for confidence man. And if you look at the origins of that, the confidence man, what he would do is he would go out into the square and into the world, and he would confidently ask people for money or ask people for their watch or whatever, and let them know that he would gladly give them the whatever it is back. But it was false. But it was the way he would ask, and how he even came to that is, well, I want to say after he was doing what he was doing, he was labeled in the paper as the confidence man, because he would say, I would do this. Would you give me your watch in confidence that I would blah? So he became the confidence man. That's the con game. So it's the confidence game. But in order to have such conviction, you have to have confidence in yourself. And I want to bring it to this point of faith and belief, because everything that ever exists on the outside always exists on the inside first. Even when you don't believe, that's when you see things start to shake and shift and not work. But if you believe, then other people will start to believe that, because for some reason or another, it must feel true. Now, where you come in is where you put the work in, you put the time in, and you make your decisions, and your offer is bona fide or genuine or real, so that you're not criminal. So now people actually believe in you, and you create testimonials, and then you continue to go and grow. But for me, I didn't have the credentials. I didn't have any of that kind of stuff when I put together what I was putting together, but I could see in my head what I knew that I wanted, and I believed I could have that. So I just started working in that direction and stepping out on some faith and doing that. So when you come with your name, don't shame yourself, because I couldn't shame myself, and I couldn't trick myself into thinking that I wasn't good enough or qualified to call myself whatever I thought that I wanted to appoint myself. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it makes perfect sense. You're forced because of the name that you chose. You forced yourself to work harder to live up to it to a degree.
Right.
You know,
To a degree.
and I love your con man idea, because your comments rather, uh, because in reality they're the first viral marketers. You know,
Con man. Yeah.
when you think about it, the snake oil salesman. What did he do? He marketed the shit out of the snake oil.
He made you feel confident that if you drank the snake oil, you was gonna have what you was gonna have. You was gonna be good.
Yeah, like look at you, you're bald. Here, slap some of that stuff on you. You're gonna look like this guy over here.
And what's the first thing you say? I feel it tingling right now. I feel it. It's working right
Yeah,
now. You still be bald as a goddamn cue ball in 2 weeks.
I mean, just I just came up with a different name. It's not gonna work, but the Modern Con Man podcast.
You know what's funny about that? If we called ourselves a modern con man podcast, people want to they want to see if they could believe that we're actually con men. They have to know if we are or we aren't.
It's true. I mean and that kind of goes into like the thought process of, are we with the name, are we instilling, the idea of curiosity? Are we getting people curious, going, what the hell is this? Let's listen. Or do we want to go a different direction and explain what we are ahead of time, like the Ad Man podcast, so that we can hit those people that are actually wanting to listen for marketing advice or marketing, pros. I don't know.
I like the ad man. When I look at our lives and us being friends and how we've been working together, we're not we've always been hired guns for somebody's bigger thing. We've always been a cog in the wheel, whether you brought me in or I brought you in, or we were bringing in teams, and we've always been somebody's ad man. And I kind of sub that and say the right hand ad man. I'm your right hand ad man, because if you call me, I know I can call Chris. I know I can make you creative. I know I can do these things. So I'm your guy that you can get the guys to do the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the Ad Man podcast, it's really exactly who we are. We're a mix of so many things.
It's true, but I mean, what are some other things that we can conjure up? I mean, you're talking about hired guns, the Ad Man Hitman podcast, or Hitman Ad Man, you know, the the Merc with the ads, you know.
I like alliteration, so I don't get me started because I'll be done
Oh
alliterated us to death.
no, the alliteration is perfect because it sticks, you know. Just think of all those stupid commercials that get stuck in your head, you know. It's all alliteration. And I'm a big fan of like I so a little bit about the way my mind works. I love to create names that are long, that have a little bit of a longer thing, in order to create a funny word or another type of word when it's when you have your initials. So I used to joke with my wife with our second child. Said I want to name him Walter Oscar Ronsky, so that when he writes his initials, he's writing wow.
Oh goodness, you went there with it.
Or Walter Herbert Ronsky. Or no, that wouldn't have worked. What was the other one? Oh, Oscar Walter Ronsky. Ow.
But I mean, and if you name him Herbert, he'll be the guy from Family Guy. We're
Yeah,
going to get some good
Herbert Oscar Ronsky.
news.
Ow. I
Why
mean,
don't you go down in the cellar and bring some popsicles?
but so for me,
Yes.
that oh man. No, so for me, doing stuff like that is fun and it's funny and it sticks too. And when you're talking about a brand and you're picking a name, you know, the Ad Man podcast. What is that? Tap us up. You know, it
Yeah,
works. I mean, Modern Con Man podcast. The Modern Con Man, MCM. Eh.
I think the con man would only work if we were bringing on, excuse me, if we were bringing on well-known pickpockets, con men, and people who did things like that and interviewing them. That would be phenomenal if we were doing that.
That's
Because then
true.
because then we
We're
could base it in an air of true crime, and that's a whole genre in itself. People like to see that and hear that. So we wouldn't satisfy that because we're not even con men.
yeah. No, no, we're not. We're
People would
well,
be disappointed that we're doing things the right way and we're not con men. We'd actually be conning them, conning our viewers, and they would not be happy about that.
well.
That's
Doesn't that
horrible.
make us con men then?
That makes us douches.
All right. Well, I mean, let's talk about the name, the Ad Man podcast. You know, it, I wish there wasn't a show called Mad Men.
Why?
I love it, but I wish I could have named this the Mad Men podcast, because it's a call to the past of what advertisers used to be called, and it's cool. But if we call it the Madman Podcast or Mad Men Podcast, we're just going to get a bunch of fans of the Mad Men show listening, and the people that we want to listen, namely our prospective clients and stuff like that. Yes, this is an advertisement. Ooh, imagine that. An ad company doing advertisements. you know,
I mean, imagine us overthinking the Ad Man podcast and letting it slip away and someone else trademarking
yes, that is true.
it. Because then there's that side of the coin too, because I think it's a phenomenal name. And I think it works on so many levels. And I think we don't have to overthink it. And when you hear the Ad Man podcast, you just don't even have to think about what it is.
Yeah. And then, for our The Admin Podcast, T.A.P into better business. Tap into better business. Boom. You know, got
We,
tagline.
we can even avoid the acronym TAP because I already have a podcast called the TAB podcast, the Thing About Business podcast. You know what I mean? But I do love the Admin Podcast, Tap into Business. I like that idea to use it as a subline. So I think we're onto something there. Did you have any more things that you wanted to put out as far as like, you know, how to come up with names or anything that you learned over the years?
I mean, over the years,
I'm yawning. I was literally driving Uber to like 7 o'clock this morning, and I'm just putting it out there because at this point in business, that is where I'm at, and it is a very interesting time that is requiring a lot of long mornings and long nights. So
yeah,
later,
well,
when we look back at this, we can have a time capsule of where we were at.
hey, you know, that's it. It's great to talk about, your journey as a business person. I mean, everybody listening to this is going to be in a different spot in their timeline as a business person. I mean, you know, what you just said is gonna resonate with some people. They're gonna be like, oh, so I'm not the only one that I'm running this business, but I gotta do some other stuff to make
I'm
sure
gonna
that
take it a step. I'm gonna take it a step further, Chris, and say, when you start out, you ain't running the business. The business is running you, dog. You know
shit.
what I'm saying? You're it's working you. You know, sometimes as Myron Golden says, you know, if the business ain't working for you, it's working on you sometime. You know, you working your job to pay your bills, and then you putting your time and effort into these things and those things, and you're running into unknown unknowns that unravel as you run into them, only to look back 5 years and say, well, when I started this journey, I didn't know nothing, and I didn't even think I didn't know nothing. But today I know something, but I know I don't know what I ought to know all the way. But when you do, you feel that experience, those experience points build up. So yeah, man, that's what's going on right now.
Yeah. So I mean, tangent fix. Go back to what you asked me about, names and everything else. It's, you know, I've worked with so many different brands, so many different names of these people. Like I've had brands where they use their actual name and like this is my name and this is what I do, and that works. I've worked with companies that have, their name means nothing. It's just a smattering of letters,
Yeah,
and that works. And I've met people that have descriptors or use historical references. Any name can work as long as it's genuine. I think that's the biggest thing. A genuine name, a unique name, something. For example, we've all heard of hymns, right? Watching late night TV. Hey, go to hymns, fix your baldness, fix whatever's going on downstairs. Blah blah blah. Did you know that there's another brand out there called Men's?
I didn't know that.
Yes,
I know
Chris.
there's a men's bathroom.
Yes. Well, no, but it's the same type of company, but they call it Men's instead of Hymns. Well, Hymns was first, then Men's came out, and they tried to follow along with what Hymns did. That doesn't work. You need to be unique. You need to have something different. You know, it's that's the main point when you're figuring out a name. Do a little bit of research. Like you come up with your names. Find two or three that you really feel passionate about. And then do a little research, do a little digging. See if somebody else has that name first, obviously, because, lawsuits. But Secondly, find out if there's anybody that has similar names that could be confused with yours that are already around, because we live in a copycat society, and when when somebody else sees something that works, they want to copy it because they think it's going to make it work for them. We all get those things on Twitter. Hey, here's how I made my $1 million on YouTube. Follow my step-by-step thing and you can do it. Or you get the I wrote a book on how to make your first $1 million. Buy my book and learn how. Every case and every situation is different. And the reason that that person wrote that book, say how I made my first $1 million, here's how to do it, is because they didn't have that money and they wanted to make that $1 million from the book sales. Because I know if you tell people, I've literally thought about this, a social experiment. Write a book, quote unquote. Make $100,000 in a week. Here's how. And people are going to buy it, and it's going to open up and it's going to say, write a fake book. And that's it.
And there's power in the name, because in the title you said what you said, but unfortunately you deceived people. But
it would have been a social experiment, and what would have happened is I would have done it, refunded everybody's money at the end, and been like, hey, this raised this much money because of this name, and here was the content. So when you read these, when you go to find a book, like, hey, make this much revenue in your business in 30 days, whatever. Just remember that book is part of that. They're making money from that.
Yeah.
And they're using your desire to make a quick buck to, turn you into a customer for that book that says literally nothing. Like, I've read so many books that literally say nothing. Here's a 5-step program to do great in business. Make a great product. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Bring it to market. Obviously. Don't bring it to market, you're not going to make any money. Find a catchy name. Oh, who would have thought of that? Find your price point. Isn't that what business is all about? It's all bullshit.
Well,
I mean, not all of it. Not all of it.
Well, I'm going to say this. I don't really know what I'm talking about when I say this, but I'm going to say this. There's a difference between giving something a name as a standalone name and giving something a headline, because the headline calls out whatever the pain. Like Jack Link's Jerky doesn't call out the pain of being hungry and needing a snack. It isn't called, Snack Links when you're in the car. You know what I'm saying? And then you open it up and it's a bag of air. You know what I mean? So when you look at names, it's a little bit different than that. But I will say this: when you think about names, and because you brought a point up, you said, people just using names and it's just a smorgasbord of just letters, just it's a name just for name's sake.
Yeah.
And I personally have never built a relationship with nobody. And what I mean by I've never built a relationship with nobody is that nobody likes nobody. So whatever you put together, whatever I want to put together, I always think to myself, who is this entity? What does this entity stand for? What does it actually mean? So that when you meet somebody, that somebody has something of substance to tell you or to show you, or they have some type of intrinsic value that you can either stand on or get behind. So now you're not meeting nobody, because again, nobody likes nobody.
And well, you're bringing up a topic for another podcast, actually. Um, Talking about, finding your brand voice. And, because once you have the name, you're right, it's just a name, it's nobody. And what you have to do with that name now, as part of your branding, is give it a personality. And that's
Even before that though, because so in certain languages, I think I'm gonna mess this up, but maybe I'm right. In the Hebrew language, I believe, or one of those languages, the letters mean something.
right.
Like the actual letters have meanings, and then when those letters come together, those letters in those ways mean something too together. Unlike the American language, the letters are just sounds and
Or just
consonants, but
symbols.
they don't mean anything until you put them together. So the name itself can have a meaning stand alone. You know
Well,
what I
yeah.
mean? So yeah, you know what I mean? And then from there, it emanates and emanates and emanates. It's the ripple effect from the brand voice to the mission to this and to that. So yeah, you're onto something, but I wanted to make that distinction there.
Well, yeah, I mean, so you're right. When you're choosing a name, that is something that you want to think about. You need to be conscious of what the name is implying. You know,
Yeah, there you go.
you need, like, let's go back to the podcast names. Con Man Podcast, the Modern Con Man Podcast type of thing. You know, it does have a certain personality to that type of name.
Right.
Whereas the Ad Man Podcast has a different personality.
That's right.
And it's
We could
got,
be trusted advisors.
yeah. I mean, the Ad Man Podcast it's a little professional, but it's also kind of gives you this idea of, hey, this is a behind the scenes look of what happens in advertising.
It's almost
And
like Mythbusters. When you hear the term Mythbusters, I didn't before I seen the show, when I heard the name, I knew what it was.
right, right. And you knew kind of the personality of what that is based off of previous, perceptions of words that are in there, like the Busters, Mythbusters. Oh, what does that sound like? Ghostbusters.
Right.
And what was Ghostbusters?
Right.
It was funny. It was techie. It was a little serious. It was exciting.
Yeah.
And I guess the Ad Man podcast has a little bit of that too, because it's gonna be Ad Men, Ad Men
Admin. Okay.
instead
Admin.
of instead of Ad Man, because now I'm thinking about how we can relate the show Mad Men, which was entertaining behind the scenes look at advertising companies
Mm.
and drama and all that other stuff. By just removing the letter M and making it Ad Men, people are still going to remember Mad Men because it's
Mm.
very close. And yeah, I think that's the name. I think we
We'll
figured
look
out
it
the
up
name
and
of
make
the
sure,
podcast.
man. I think we should close it out for now, just to make sure that we're not overloading everybody. Do you have
Yeah.
any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I mean, rate us, like us, subscribe. We're going to be on YouTube at least for a little while. I don't know how the visual side of this podcast is gonna work, but we'll see. Uh, we're gonna be on Apple. We're gonna be on Spotify. Do your part. Help us spread the word. Help us do something. If you have an idea of what you want to see in the show, we'll have contact information in the bio. Let us know what you want to hear.
Drop it in the comment section. That's the best place
Drop
to
it in the
put it.
comments. Yeah, that'd be great. We're just starting out. We got a long way to go. We're not professional podcasters. We're professional admin. It's a little different, you know, but we're gonna do our
All right.
best to do our thing. So like, subscribe, share, spread the word, do what you can. And if you want to hear about something specific, let us know. We'll eventually get to it.
Listen, it's been fun having this conversation. Thanks for listening in. And remember, never be afraid to promote yourself and promote the success of others you help. We are the admin, and we'll see you next time. Peace.